Joseph led the donkey off the side of the road and rubbed his hand over his forehead.
Let's find a place to spend the night. It'll be dark before we reach Bethlehem.
Mary didn't respond. Joseph walked around the side of the animal and looked into his wife's face. She was asleep. Chin on her chest, hands on her stomach. How had she been able to doze off while riding on the back of a donkey? But then suddenly, her head popped up and her eyes opened.
Are we there?
No. We still have several hours to go. But I do see an inn up ahead. Shall we spend the night?
Oh, Joseph, I'm feeling that we should continue until we reach Bethlehem. But perhaps we can stop for a rest.
He sighed, smiled, squeezed her hand and resumed his place, leading the donkey towards that simple structure on the side of the road. It took several minutes for Joseph to find a bench where the two of them could sit.
It is very crowded. I'll return in a moment with something to eat.
Joseph elbowed his way through the crowd. He turned around in time to see a woman take his empty seat next to Mary. Mary started to object, but then she smiled, looked through the crowd at Joseph and shrugged. Not an unkind bone in her body. Of all the bizarre events of the last few months, he was sure of one thing: the heart of his wife. He'd never met anyone like her. Her story that an angel appeared in the middle of the afternoon, well, could have been some kid playing a trick. His memory of an angel appearing in his sleep, well, could have been from God, could have been from too much wine. Her story about her uncle being struck speechless until the cousin was born, could have been laryngitis. But her story about being a pregnant virgin, well, Mary doesn't lie. She's as pure as an angel. So if Mary says she's a virgin, well, she is. And if she says the baby is the Son of God, well, let's just hope he gets his nose from the father's side of the family. Because Mary, round-faced and short, wasn't a beauty by any means. A bit hefty before she was pregnant. But her eyes always twinkled, and her heart was bigger than the Mediterranean. She had an ever-present smile and a countenance of a person about to deliver the punchline of a good joke. That's what made Mary, Mary. And they had both hoped the baby would come in Nazareth. At least they had family there. They knew no one in Bethlehem. Joseph tucked her arm in his, and the two leaned against a wall.
Are you sure you want to go farther?
She nodded and then asked,
Just one more drink of water?
Of course. Why don't just wait here?
Joseph stood in line at the well. Mary smiled at the way he quickly struck up conversation with the man in front of him. When he returned carrying the water, the man came with him.
Mary, this is Simon. He's also going to Bethlehem and has offered us a place to sit on his ox cart.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, so I'll just tie our doggy to the back of the cart.
Excuse me. I heard you say Bethlehem. Would you have room for one more? The request came from an old man with a long silver beard and the fringes of a rabbi. Simon quickly nodded, and after helping Mary into the wagon, Joseph turned to help the rabbi.
What was your name?
Gabriel, I answered, and I took a seat across from Mary. Mercies hovered in front of the wagon and Paragon behind. Both were alert, wings spread and swords drawn. Up until the stop at the inn, I had flown with him. But something seemed suspicious about the wagon, so I took the form of a person. I quickly regretted not having chosen the appearance of a young merchant, for the beard I wore itched horribly. But my battalion didn't need me to remind them, but I did anyway. Hell does not want Emmanuel born, so stay alert. And invisible angels a dozen deep encircled the wagon. I smiled to myself, for Simon could have driven blindfolded. There was no way this cart would have failed to reach its destination. But the congestion on the road slowed our progress. We traveled no faster than those around us on foot, but at least Mary could rest. She closed her eyes and she leaned her head against the side of the wagon, and I could see the radiance in her womb. He glowed like a healing fire, and I worshipped him even unborn. My heart celebrated with silent songs of praise which he could hear, and I smiled as Mary felt him move, and around me my army heard my songs and joined in praise. But an hour later I sensed it, evil. My body tensed. The feeling of deviltry was on the road, lurking among the travelers. I alerted the angels, "Be ready!" But Sophia entered the cart and whispered,
You
prowls as a lion looking for someone to devour.
I nodded in agreement, and I searched the faces of those walking near the wagon. But a young man approached the cart and asked Mary.
You look tired. Would you like some water?
Thank you.
Replied Mary as she reached for the offered wineskin. But I jumped to my feet, purposefully bumping the demon's arm, and the water pouch fell to the ground as Mary and Joseph heard me apologize. Only the young man heard me challenge him. Beast of hell, you shall not touch this daughter of God. But Flumar vacated the body of the man and drew a sword.
You have no chance this time, Gabriel.
Suddenly dozens of demons appeared from all sides and raced towards Mary. And Mary spoke, her face full of pain as she held her womb.
Joseph, something's wrong. It's like something's hitting me in the stomach. I'm in terrible pain.
Instantly I assumed angelic form and wrapped myself around her as a shield, the demon swords piercing me. I felt their sting, but she was safe. Just then Paragon and 7 angels appeared, slashing at the demon's back. The demons were distracted but determined. Then the wagon began to shake. Travelers began to panic. I heard a cry, and I looked up in time to see Simon clutch his throat. His face was red, and his eyes bulged, and around his neck I could see the spiny fingers of a troll. Another demon had bewitched the ox, causing it to lurch spastically toward the side of the road. Someone screamed.
Stop the wagon, there's a cliff ahead!
Simon gasped for breath and slumped sideways on the seat. I knew he was dead. The possessed animal swerved madly towards the cliff. I looked at Mary. Joseph's arm was around her shoulders and her hand was on her stomach. I knew that in a matter of seconds, we would crash over the edge into the valley below. The driver was dead. The wagon was out of control. Then I turned and I prayed to the only one I knew who could help. And from the womb he spoke. His parents did not hear. The word was not for the ears of Mary or Joseph, but only the hosts of heaven and all of hell could hear the word. And when they did, all stopped.
Life.
The command flooded the wagon as totally as it flooded Eden, and the demons began to scatter like rats.
Life.
Came the command a second time. Then Simon coughed as air filled his lungs. The reins! I shouted, and he gasped, grabbed the reins and pulled himself erect. Through watery eyes, he saw the edge of the road and instinctively yanked the animal back until it stopped. We were safe. But even with the demons gone, I took no chances. My command to Paragon was urgent. They found her on the road, and they will find her room at the inn. Do what needs to be done. So Sophia soared ahead to the inn at Bethlehem. Mary remained enveloped in my light, and Joseph watched her with alarm. She relaxed in my care.
I'm better now. What happened to the rabbi?